What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Pro vs. Pro. Pretty busy extended weekend for both Justin and I with our own golf. We're two washed up old pros who actually had some competitive action this weekend. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Got some John Deere recap to go through, and then a loaded field for the Genesis Scottish Open. So really excited to talk about that one. I've already got 3 outrights in our tracker. We'll hit on all 3. Lots to get to. How you doing, Justin?
Good, man. Just a good weekend, fun weekend, a lot of preparation, golf, son's birthday, just had a nice little sweat going again at the Deere. That's 2 weeks in a row. These non-elevated events that seem to have, I've kind of hit my niche, I think, on this deal. So maybe we'll eventually win one of these, but we're getting close.
Yeah, I think you nailed it there. You've been awesome in these events, and I think we even talked beforehand about how these events can really fit you, because it's a lot about kind of identifying the guys who haven't played up to their talent level, and who, once they get in the mindset of, hey, you know what, I really am one of the best players in this field, can finally reach that level and kind of hit their potential. And you've been all over those guys.
Yeah, it's been, like I said, 2 weeks in a row. I had it in the wrong 200 single, unfortunately, but still, just to finish third and to be disappointed to finish third. I didn't have Adam Shank. He made all those birdies coming down the stretch. Cost me second, maybe the win. But regardless, yeah, I think you're right. I think that I've kind of found my stride in these ones that I feel like for instance, the Genesis was such a stacked field. You kind of just got to pick that top tier player and get lucky with them, right? Mm-hmm. And then because they're all so close, you get these other, like I promise I'll have a lot of attention to the Barracuda this week and see what kind of, what kind of stuff DK offers, if they have some good events there, and then I can get in some nice, just nice situations. I think I'm more looking forward to that than I am the Genesis. Obviously, for viewership, I love the Genesis, but for as far as trying to make money on DraftKings, I think I'm going to have a lot more invested in the Barracuda.
Well, I'm glad that you will be going all in on the Barracuda, because that means I don't have to, and you can just provide the content to the subs. I don't like those events. I think it almost makes perfect sense, right? Like I hit Keegan at the Travelers, and as you mentioned, like those events, they're kind of a little bit more about finding the diamonds in the rough, the guys who, for whatever reason, people have these biases against, where when you look at the data, there's just every reason to buy into the player and very little reason to go against them. And that's kind of what my strength seems to be. So hopefully in this loaded Scottish Open field, we can have another outright win and another successful DK week in that regard.
For sure. And to go back to last week, I think the names that I really want to take out of last week that are really that good, Alex Smalley being one of them. Mm-hmm. I've been a big fan of him since I played with him at US Open sectionals. And I think he was one of those guys that I, kind of was able to lock into my lineups and get ahead of the curve on him, in these contests. And he played awesome. I really his third round. Mm-hmm. You probably already have this. His strokes gained approach has to be, I think, second to Scotty Scheffler for the year. Like, as far as best rounds. Yeah, his third round strokes gained approach, I saw something was just like out of this world.
Yeah, he gained 5.51 in that round. That's nuts. I don't know where that ranks, but it's certainly way up there. He gained 4 strokes approach on the front 9 alone. That's absolutely absurd.
Yeah, and especially with the back 9 supposed to be a little bit more scoreable. Mm-hmm. And then obviously we can't talk about the Deere without talking about Straka's choke job there coming down the stretch. He got lucky to still win the tournament, in my opinion. None of those other guys, Todd or Smalley didn't really make a run at him. But, parring both those par 5s and then hitting into the water on 18, he had to be somewhat disappointed with that finish.
Yeah, I almost thought that he needed to finish at least at 23, and then just nobody was able to make a run. I don't know if it suddenly started playing tougher or something like that, but it was definitely an interesting way to see that one end.
Yeah, for sure. But good for him. I think he's a really good player, and I think that he belongs out there. He belongs in a lot of the talk that we kind of pass over, I think, as far as talent wise. He hit some great shots. obviously hold some putts. The other thing I wanted to talk about is notice like two of the three guys that were like kind of way above everybody in the DraftKings pricing still showed up in the top 5 or top 10 of the leaderboard. Obviously, Denny didn't play very good the last day, but Abear and Denny were both there. The only one that wasn't there was Henley, and I think he still played. I think he finished around 30th or something. So it's just interesting to see when these guys that they price up there still find a way to compete. They don't just fall off the radar.
Yeah, one guy I really wanted to touch on is Cameron Young. He talked before the event about how he believes that he has been playing a lot better than what his results show, and he referenced changing drivers, and so he had one like throwaway round where he just couldn't do anything off the tee, but has ultimately been playing pretty well, just not making many putts. Really, really interesting pattern in his strokes gain data this past week. If you look at round 3, he lost over 3.5 strokes with his irons, gained over a stroke putting, gained off the tee. And then in the final round, he gained almost 3 strokes with his iron, so almost gaining all of it back what he lost the day before, and lost almost 2.5 strokes putting. So we have this like interesting situation with him here where you can kind of make an argument either way. Basically, you can say, you know what, I'm going to continue to be out on Cameron Young because he just can't get it together. It seems like every single round something is holding him back. Or you can take the opposite stance and say, you know what, this guy has had every single piece of his game working at some point in time lately. He feels like he's playing better than his results. If he can get it all to come together at once, maybe we see him contend just like he did last year at the Open Championship. So where are you right now on Cameron Young's game? Are you kind of almost back in, or are you still on the outside looking in?
So he was part of my lineup that finished third in that 200 SE. And after watching him play on Sunday, because we had 60 kids running around for my kid's birthday, so I wanted to do something else. But so I actually watched, and I want no part of Cam Young at this point. And I'll tell you why. Unless he's hitting driver on every hole, he seems to where he can't hit a 3-wood in play. Mm-hmm. The other thing we talk about so much is high leverage shots. The driver on 10 hits it left into the rough, has to lay up. The 3-wood off the tee on 18 hits it in the right rough and hits it in the water again. It just seems like the high leverage shots he really struggles with right now. And then let's not to mention how many wedges he chunked from the middle of the fairway. I mean, he made so many bogeys from 80 yards in the center of the fairway with just horrible golf shots. And listen, it can happen once. Like, I get it. You get a bad lie, you get a tough number, whatever. But to see it happen so many times and then immediately, like, for instance, 10 on Sunday, he hits it in the rough, has to lay up, lays it up perfect, chunks it to the front edge and 3 putts. I mean, all your momentum's gone because he's standing on that tee thinking, I should make 4, but I should have a chance to make 3 here. So until he starts hitting those high leverage shots better, I'm going to continue to stay away from him. Unless you're going to give me him as about the 8th price guy on DraftKings in a non-elevated week event where his talent is just going to be good enough, but as far as the elevated event stuff, I want no part.
I think one other important point to make here is he actually only gained with his irons once on the back 9. He gained almost 3.5 strokes with his approach just on the front 9 alone. And so I think if there is a clear picture for him right now, it's that he's going to be extremely volatile round to round. And so maybe the best takeaway isn't to be in or out on him. It's to be very selective about when you use him. Maybe shy away from him on the main slate because he's at elevated risk of missed cuts right now. But you can play him pretty aggressively in showdowns, I think, especially in a round when you can project him to be low owned in that showdown. So maybe he comes out, shoots 2 over in round 1 or something like that. And he was only 10% in round 1. So now he's going to be like somewhere around 5% or something like that in round 2. Maybe that's the time to play him. When he's contrarian in showdown, go all in. Other than that, just stay away from him. Maybe that'll be my approach in the next few weeks.
And I agree 100%. I mean, the shot he hit on 9, the high cut 7-iron from like 198 or something. I mean, like to a foot, like there's not many guys in that field that could hit that shot. So I would definitely agree there. I think that's a great way to use him. I think because he's one of those guys that he's so volatile, 74-65 is not out of the question for him.
Yeah. I did like the fact that for the week, he still gained almost a full stroke off the tee. So it definitely had some struggles in the last round, particularly when he didn't have driver in the hands, as you mentioned. But overall, I think we are seeing better signs from him. I think the overall strokes game profile from the week definitely leans into what he has been saying about his game, that it's better, it's in better shape than what you would think just when you look at the results and look at the strokes game profiles of weeks past. So I think definitely I will be interested in showdowns. How interested I'll be in main slate is probably going to be dependent on what's the ownership like, what's the price like, all that stuff.
I was going to say there's definitely a point where you could get his price low enough that I would be in on him, right? I mean, I don't know how low that would have to be for the British Open, but yeah, I definitely think there's he's an interesting player, and I think that his talent level is definitely there. He's just kind of struggling. And the other high leverage shot that I couldn't remember earlier is the drivable par 4 where he hits it long right, where it has no chance to even make a birdie, right? I mean, like, once again, he's trying to hit it on the green and have a chance to make 2 to get into contention, and hits it over the green and makes 4, and just yeah, and maybe a little bit of that might be just the golf course and the way everything sets up to his eye, but he's definitely somebody to watch going forward. I'm just not ready yet.
When you played with Smalley, was his transition as slow and patient as it is now?
I don't remember that, so I'm going to guess no. Like, it doesn't stick out as like, hey, this dude's like transition is really paused. That being said, I love it. So I'm one of the few people, like, the same thing with my golf swing. When I get off, I feel like long, slow takeaway, little pause, and then feel like you can just generate more power and get everything synced up a little bit better. I'm a big fan of what he's doing right now. That's just my personal opinion and what I've, for what I go through in my own golf swing, right or wrong.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I really like the transition. For those who don't understand exactly what we're talking about how slow he is at the top of his swing before he starts the downswing. He almost pauses the way Cameron Young does, or the way that Hideki Matsuyama used to do. It's more of like the club is hovering rather than pausing. But that's actually, it reminds me exactly of what I like to feel in my swing. Now, if you watched my swing, you wouldn't see that long of a delay, but it feels like I have that long of a delay for me. And the way that I like to think about it is I like to feel like the club becomes weightless at the top before I start my downswing. So for those of you who are avid golfers yourself, maybe go try that feel. Just let the club feel weightless before you start to generate any speed on the downswing. But that's what it looks like he's doing to me. And I agree. Like, I think having that kind of feel, that kind of patience at the top really helps under pressure, because one of the biggest ways that people fail under pressure is that they lose their tempo. And when you're that in tune with your tempo, when you have such like an easy cue to follow, like, hey, the club has to get weightless before you start the downswing, just I think makes it a lot easier for you to stay consistent with your tempo when you're under pressure.
Especially because it's a focal point of what he's doing, right? He's obviously thinking about that. That's not something that just happens naturally. So yeah, I agree completely, especially about the being under pressure, because he's thinking about the one thing that tends to change the most when you get under pressure.
Yeah, I like it. Let's talk a little bit about your USAM qualifier, because you had a piece of the lead even at one point. So what was it like to be back under that type of pressure for yourself? Obviously, neither of us are competing anywhere near as much as we were, let's say, 5 years ago. So it had to be fun for you just to be in that environment again.
It was fun. I mean, the first round was one of the craziest rounds, probably maybe the craziest rounds of golf I've ever played. I mean, in my entire life, as far, just scoring, make a birdie, and then I'd hit it, right at a flag and spin. The greens were really soft, so you had to really control your spin. I'm a pretty low spin player, so I thought it would help me, but, spin it off the green, 3-putt, like it was. And then, I was like, man, really got to get something going. Well, I hit a 5-iron in the leather for eagle to get the 2 under. I was like, all right, let's go. And then drive it down there perfect. And then 3-putt again to make another bogey. And then I just kind of potted around, got it back. And then I make a double. I missed the green with a 4-iron on a par 3 and make double, just trying to get too cute with the chip. Then I was like, man, what am I going to do now? Well, then 17, I make it from the fairway from 100 yards from second eagle the day to get back to 2 under, and then had a pretty reachable par 5 and hit a good tee shot, and then kind of had to just bounce one up there, and it hits a rake and goes into the bunker, and I don't get it up and down. So it cost me, but I still shoot 2 under and right in it. And then I was pretty excited, birdied the first 2, the whole, first hole made a pretty normal birdie, and then second hole I hit a bad 9-iron and then made it from the bunker, like short-sided. I mean, 1 of 5 getting it up and down and made it like a putt.
Mackenzie Hughes style, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. I did a little bit of everything. I mean, and then hit it out of bounds by 1 foot and make 8 on a par 5 that I'm thinking once again high leverage shot that we just talked about, and so. Yep. Then I kind of got tired. I mean, 36 holes, 110 degrees, just not. I mean, like you said, it's not like we compete every day and walk every day anymore. So my feet are feeling it today. Lots of blisters, and I was telling you earlier, I don't know if I'll wear shoes again all week. So, but yeah, it's fun.
You're getting a little bit old for sure.
Yeah, it was fun though. I mean, I've got to think that I'm going to get in one of these sooner than later. U.S. Open locals by 1, Mid-Am by 1 last year, U.S. Am by a couple, in contention every seems like every time. So, I probably need to work a little bit harder on the little things if I'm going to be really serious about it, including being in better shape and being able to handle the heat and stuff. But it is fun to compete, and, my buddy made a good point. He's like, you don't get in contention this many times by accident. So close to playing the best I've ever played. I just can't put it all together. And a lot of that's just because of, driving it a little bit longer. And then my long iron play is just that much better. I can hit shots that I've never hit before. So yeah, it's fun, but still disappointing. Anybody that loves to compete knows it still sucks to fail. So
what
the good news is I don't do it for a living. What's that?
What have you been doing to get longer?
Nothing. I don't know. The driver that I'm using definitely helped, but it doesn't make much sense. I would say at the peak of my career, I could maybe swing at 116, maybe. And even then, it wasn't very efficient. Now I'm swinging at 112 and probably flying at a good 15 further. That being said, my normal shot is not that much better. It's just like when I get in the situation where I have to carry 280 or 285, I have the ability to do it. It's weird. It doesn't make any sense. This driver, I'm not a big plug guy. But this Callaway Paradigm driver, I just put my same shaft in it, everything the exact same, and I picked up 10 a carry and spun it less. So it's
what were you playing before?
The Callaway Rogue. So I got my first ever true full-on driver fitting probably 2 years ago. And I was in there getting my wedges regripped before this. And he's like, or right before US Open locals. And he was like, hey, try this head. So I hit 5 with mine and 5 with it. And it was instantly better. I bought literally I tried to buy the demo off I was like, I'll just take this one. It's got sky marks and everything else from all these people. I just if it's this good, I don't care.
Yeah, I like that. I've been using a ping driver for probably 10 plus years now. I just love them. Absolutely.
If you hit it far, I don't know why you wouldn't use a ping driver. To be honest, if you have the club head speed, it's the easiest driver there is to hit in play every time.
They're just so good at taking the spin off, which when you're at a higher swing speed, that's one of the toughest things to do is get your spin rate down. And I think the ping does an awesome job of that. So yeah, that's the main reason why I've been using it for so long. I love them. I had my club championship this past weekend, and our club kind of has a stacked top tier of players. We were joking that it's basically like a county championship at this point. And I played shockingly well the first day. The only 2 rounds that I had previously for the past, let's say, month or so were 2 rounds last weekend. And I played horrendously in both. Couldn't do a damn thing. Show up on Saturday for round 1 of the club championship and was just on all around. Shot 2 under, was 1 off the lead. Myself and the guy who were leading were well ahead of everyone else. It kind of turned into a 2-man race. And then I show up Sunday And once again, I had nothing. Just couldn't do anything at all. Had one of my like scrappiest rounds that I can recall playing. Kept it close for a while. He ended up getting me. I hit a really bad approach shot on 17 that kind of sunk my chances. But I had made a really nice comeback with like a complete inability to hit tee shots, which is obviously, as we've talked a lot, like that's been my strength. So that was a really strange round.
Yeah.
But like you, I just enjoyed being back in that kind of environment, feeling like I had pressure shots to hit over and over, and made a lot of pressure putts, which was really fun again. And at this point, I'm kind of just gearing up for the Pennsylvania Open, which is pretty much exactly a month from now. So really, really excited now for that one. Having played some really good golf this weekend under pressure again.
Well, that's awesome. So it's funny because I don't even play our club championship, and we've got a lot of really good players, a lot of plus handicaps. Oh, I mean, it's all the guys I play with, a lot of my really good friends. It took even par over 3 rounds to win it at our home course, where the same place it takes like 12 under to get through Q School. So like, it's one of those deals that I don't know if the guys at our club we've got one guy that I know will listen to this that finished second, I think, or third. But I don't know if it's just when they get under pressure and have to count all of their scores and putt everything out, if it's that big of a deal, you know what I mean, where every single shot matters. But I mean, for as many good players that we have at our club, I'm surprised that even par wins every year, but it pretty much does. Hank Keeney's a member as well. So if we could, if him and I ever played, I think it would be fun. But I just 3 days, 116 degrees. It's not like we're in Philadelphia where it's cool. It just doesn't. And if I win, everybody's going to say you're supposed to win. And if you don't win, everybody's going to give you shit forever. So it's like a no-win situation. And there's a lot of guys that are very capable. I mean, golf's hard.
Mm-hmm. We have these really cool, they're called team matches within the Golf Association of Philadelphia, where just one club is up against another club and up against another club. And you kind of rise through the ranks. We've made it to the top levels. The only heckling that I heard this week was, when are you getting your amateur status back so you can come play gap matches? And I was like, I don't know. Let's see how the state open goes first, at least. But
yeah, no doubt. I mean, that's the only reason I got my amateur status back, because I knew I wasn't going to have time to compete and do all that stuff. And so now at least I get to play 6 or 8 times a year and have a good time and feel like I have a chance, right? Like I texted you yesterday morning. I was like, dude, you should see all these college bags. Like, it's literally college kids everywhere. And like with like 6 holes to go, I looked at my caddy. I was like, now I know why it's all college kids. I'm like, just dragging.
Do you have a mid-am qualifier coming up?
Yeah, it's almost exactly a month, August 16th. So I'm going to go to Houston for it. There's a really good golf course. It's kind of same idea, narrow, got to drive the ball well. So I'll play that. And then I'm actually going to play, they have like a Texas 4-ball. So one of the guys that works for me, my GM, he played for a living for a long time, and he just got his amateur status back as well. So we're going to go play that together and just have like a good time. So I have a lot of golf that week, but outside of that, I think that's probably it for the year for me. That being said, unless I play good, we'll see.
Let's talk some Genesis Scottish Open at this point. Course fit is a really difficult discussion here, because even though this event has been going on for a while, like obviously last year was the beginning of a major change in what type of field we see. We started to see a lot more Americans and PGA Tour players come over and play this event, gearing up for the Open Championship. Of course, this year it's now an elevated event for the PGA Tour, so we're getting this fantastic field. But it's left us with very little data to work with from the course fit model. What we do see from last year especially is a tendency towards distance over accuracy off the tee. The way Josh put it, I think really eloquently, was like spray and pray type of golf, where you just hit it as far as you can and go figure it out from there. And then we also saw a ton of signal from putting. So very little on around the green play, very little on driving accuracy, a ton to driving distance, a ton to putting, and then just kind of an average amount to iron play. If this is true, it does lead us to some very specific players. Sam Burns, Wyndham Clark are the first two who come to mind who like just get this massive advantage from this course fit. However, unlike most weeks, we can't really be that confident in their course fit because this model as a whole is really unreliable. So the course fit specialist discussion this week is I think one towards the concept of stacking that we've talked about before when we're unsure about how a course will play. Like if you do want to lean into that, you may as well play all of the guys who would benefit from this. Wyndham Clark, Sam Burns, Adam Scott, Lucas Herbert, guys like that. Just lean into it and stack those players if you want it. Otherwise, just go with the baseline talent type of approach for DraftKings. But then it's also an interesting discussion with outright bets, which we'll get into. But is there anything else that you're kind of looking at in terms of course fit?
Well, as far as course fit, I just think how many of these guys are they there to get ready for next week, or are they trying to win this week? And I think the course fit here is going to be so wind dependent because I mean the early forecast shows a lot of wind a couple of days, and so I don't care how much a course fits you. If it goes from dead still to blowing 40, it's going to benefit certain people, whether you can hit it over bunkers you couldn't hit it over before, or you can't get to bunkers that were right in your landing zone before, all of those little things. So with such a volatile forecast, I think that I'll probably just try to figure out who's here to compete and win to get into next week. And then who's here to use it more as a preparation for next week that's already in.
The current forecast that I'm seeing is like 10 to 20 miles per hour on Thursday. Maybe we get to the same amount on Friday, potentially some wind. Saturday looks pretty similar. And then Sunday could be almost carnage. Sustained over 20 for most of the day, gusts over 30. It could be one of those interesting rounds too, where it's almost like the guys who are leading going into the weekend are going to have trouble staying that far ahead of the rest of the pack because they're going to be playing in the most difficult conditions. Kind of like we saw, Scotty Scheffler battle back. Was it the API? I can't remember which event it was, but there was one where he barely made the cut and then ended up in second place in large part because he just played significantly easier conditions on the weekend than the guys who were in the lead.
Yeah, and like I said, over there, I think it's as volatile as anywhere, right? Mm-hmm. The weather changing and what could happen and stuff like that. And, the forecast changing. I just think that's such a big deal for events like this. And even so much as waves of what wave you get, I'm guessing they're just going to do exactly like they do at the British Open, just single tee it and everybody goes back to back to back to back. I don't know if they will or not, but that's what they usually do over there. So, it's an interesting week. I don't even, and then the other thing is like, who's traveling late to get over there and who's been over there, getting ready, who's been there and is practicing. And I mean, not to really blame them, but like Justin Thomas, Fowler, and Spieth were obviously shown being at Wimbledon. Are they still there? Or did they fly to Scotland already? Or I'm sure they're not now, but when did they leave and how much did they get there to actually prepare? And listen, if I were living their life, I would 100% fly to Wimbledon and then fly to Scotland. Like, if it doesn't matter, like just go have fun. I love what they're doing, but on our side, does that affect, whether you roster them or not, or whether you bet them in any kind of matchup?
Yeah, it's a fair question. It's always so tough to gauge motivation and effort, I think, and it's something that I typically shy away from because I think a lot of the time, like, what if the thought process there is, you know what, I've been playing and practicing so consistently for months now that the best thing for my game will actually be to escape golf for 3 or 4 days, something like that, and then get back into it on Tuesday, something like that. So you never know like what the methodology is for a player and what is going to be best for them. And that makes me just shy away from it because I think a lot of the time that can just end up taking you off a player that the data it's telling you to play and that you would have played. And then he goes out and plays a really great week of golf and you just feel like a dumbass for talking yourself out of it for such a kind of almost random reason.
And I wish I had better direction in my, when I was still playing, of people saying, hey, like, I mean, I had like something crazy, 3 straight years where I didn't do something golf related, like 60 days total. And I didn't do a very good job of like exiting golf and doing something else for a few days and knowing that my preparation will be able to come right back. And, so yeah, that, like I said, I can't fault them for what they're doing. Like, that's not what I meant by that at all. It's just more of like, hey, do we take a chance still that these guys are going to be ready to play and stuff like that, which I would guess they will. I mean, they are kind of, I think Jordan Spieth's shown that he can compete in these situations fairly regularly. So, it's an interesting week. I mean, my first click on DraftKings was Shane Lowry. I think the only problem is I think that'll be probably a pretty chalky first click for a lot of people, because I don't think it matters the conditions over there of whether it plays easy or hard. I think he's got the ability to win in both situations.
And I think definitely with him, the worse the conditions get, the better his chances become.
Yeah.
The first outright that I put in this week was Sam Burns, 55-1, which gives him an implied probability of just under 1.8%. We have him at 2.6% to win. The thing that I really like about this bet is that there are kind of multiple paths to success for him, where the first one is the obvious one, which is just, hey, if this course fit model turns out to be exactly right, there are very few players with the distance and putting combination that Sam Burns has. He's also coming alive a little bit with his iron play. His short game and his driving accuracy have both trended up at times this year. So, he's somebody that we've talked about a ton. But then the second reason why we keep talking about him is because he just has the skill of knowing how to win. He won a ton last year. He's won again this year. We have his baseline win rate as the fourth best in this field, only behind Scheffler, Rory, and Cantlay. So you're getting a guy who's going to win a ton generically. Now you also have this path to being a course fit specialist for him, and you get him at 55-1. It just seems like a slam dunk bet. And yes, we've bet on him a ton this year, and no, we didn't have his one win, but I think if we just keep betting on him, we can be pretty confident that eventually he's going to hit for us, and we'll be way up on him for this year as well. And that just, that doesn't even get into how much money he won us last year on those outrights.
Yeah, and I like his imagination too, which I think you have to have when you get over there and play golf. You have to, you have to think a little bit and have a little bit of imagination. You also have to have a willingness to accept the bad bounces. So like things are not going to go your way sometimes, and you have to be okay with that.
Yeah, I really like that point. And it's one of the biggest, I think, adjustments that you have to make when you go over there and play. And I do think Burns has that. He tends to be kind of almost flatlined the way he carries himself around the course. You can't quite tell if he's playing really well or really poorly just by reading his body language and stuff like that. So I think he's got the right mindset here.
Yeah, for sure. And so I just this for some reason just came to mind. But if you like him so much there, I would be interested to know the number on Davis Riley right now, because I think he could fall into that same chances at a golf course like this, where you just have to go out there and play really good and have the willingness to accept bad shots. And
he's 300-1 on both PointsBet and Caesars. And he's actually somebody that, bet pretty recently because of his volatility. He obviously didn't play quite as well as I would have liked him to play when I bet on him. But let's see what that ball striking looked like.
It's just somebody that comes to mind that, like, with the same volatility, with the same, getting in a little bit different environment that that I think could compete.
His irons were pretty good at the Rocket Mortgage where we bet him. Off the tee was fine. So if you recall, one of the arguments I made for Riley that week at the Rocket Mortgage was that in his 3 prior events, he had 2 terrible events off the tee and 1 really good one, and 2 really good iron weeks and 1 horrendous one. And so the idea was, hey, if he can just pair the good with the good, this time, he could really be up to something. His off the tee play kind of was neutral, so it was neither great nor terrible, and the approach play was only pretty good. So certainly showing signs. I think there's a chance there, and with his volatility again, like he's one of, if not the single most volatile player in the field. We have his. Let's see if I can find it. We have his round-to-round standard deviation at 3.11 strokes. For context, the second highest at a higher price than Riley is Kurt Kitayama at 3.06. There's nobody else even at 3 strokes per round of standard deviation. Most guys at the top, like Rory, Schauffele, Cantlay, they're all pretty much right at 2.5. So to be over 3 is an enormous standard deviation, and that kind of volatility does help a player of his caliber reach the top and contend in one of these fields. You almost need that, which is one of the reasons why we liked Keegan so much at the Travelers. So that 300 to 1 number, pretty intriguing for Riley.
Yeah, like I said, it's one of those names that I figured would be too high in this situation for what they're doing, and I think he'll be motivated as well, which, obviously I think motivation's a factor here. So I'm definitely interested in him this week. I wish I had access to that 301 because I would definitely be dabbling in it.
He's also a potential course fit specialist. Driving distance has become pretty much the second best skill of his behind iron play. When he first broke onto the scene, it seemed like he had a chance to be one of the better putters on tour. The putter has cooled off this year, but he has spiked a couple times in his last 5 events, including gaining over 1.5 strokes per round with the putter at the Travelers. So I think I'm probably in on that. It's not going to be one of my bigger bets, but I will probably put something down on Riley. My next outright, I've got 2 guys at 125 to 1, Kurt Kitayama and Cam Davis. A lot of this is going to be the same argument. Both of these guys would really benefit from the distance, really kind of being the driving force of success here. Both of these guys are really volatile, so you get that upside from both. I love the fact that Kitayama has already won in one of these elevated events, so we know that not only does he have the volatility to reach the top end of the leaderboard, but that he can actually get it done when he's being chased and trying to be tracked down by some of the best players in the world, like Scheffler at the API. So really like both of these numbers. I like the Kitayama number a little bit more, but for some context, 125 to 1, the implied probability there, let's see, I can get the exact number here, is 0.79%. We have Kitayama at 1.1% and Cam Davis at 1.0%. So clear edge on both, and that edge would just be enhanced if the course fit model turns out to be as accurate as we hope it is. I have some uncertainty baked into those numbers. So if we could bank on the course fit model being as predictive as it often is on tour, that 1.1 and 1.0% would probably be more like 1.3 and 1.2. So potential for some really serious edge on both of these guys.
Yeah. So I really like Cam Davis because I don't know that we've seen how talented he is. And that's saying something for how good he's been. Like, I think that he's even better than what we've seen. So if he can figure it out at that, I mean, you give somebody with that much talent that price, like I would 100% behind Cam Davis this week. I just think that he's got to put it all together, and I think part of that's probably mental.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How confident are you in betting him outright? So like, let me see, what is he available at using our prop shop here? So 125 to 1 at BetMGM and PointsBet, 100 to 1 at BetRivers, where you can get those placement points, where you can make it an each way bet. Do you feel confident enough in his ability to close if he's in contention that you just go for the best outright number, or do you want the placement points in case he's in contention and just can't quite get it done but still finishes high, and you want that a piece of that 100 to 1 reward?
Yeah, I would definitely lean towards the placement points as well, because I think if he does win, I think it'll be from behind. And I don't know if the weather really gets that bad. I haven't seen, I haven't witnessed enough in the windy situation of how good he is. I would imagine he's pretty good. So But yeah, I think, if you were to say it goes from 125 to 75, I probably would just lean towards the outright. But 125 to 100, I'd probably take the each way. And we'll just have to see. I mean, I'd like to see him play in contention at an event like this and see how he handles it.
Yeah, and that would be nice to see. This is a difficult decision for me. I think I'm leaning towards just the straight 125 to 1 number. The reason is one of the best ways that I like to evaluate this is, so if you're betting the 100 to 1 number at Bet Rivers with the each way points, you are, or placements, I should say, you're effectively getting 20 to 1 on a top 6. Now, what I like to do is compare those odds on the top 6 to the best available for a top 5. Usually, when I'm betting each way bets, I'm getting a significantly better number on a top 6 than what's available for a top 5. This week, the effective number for the top 6 becomes 20 to 1 on Bet Rivers. There's a 20 to 1 available on DraftKings for his top 5 finish. Yes, you get an extra place, but most of the time that I'm doing each way bets, I would be able to get something like 25 to 1 compared to the best available of 20. That's why each ways are so powerful usually. I don't think that this small edge at the top 5 is worth what you're sacrificing in the outright going from 125 to 100. So I'm just going to stick to that 125 number. But I will admit, like, it's pretty close to the break-even point for me, where I think if it was 110 or certainly 115 to 1 with the each way, I'd be taking that instead of the 125 number.
And I think I see your point more with Kitayama, because he's proven to win in elevated events and staying there with him. Like, I definitely would be on board with that side. I just think that we haven't seen enough out of him closing to do that.
Yeah, that's fair. I also just think, like, sometimes you don't see someone close until they do. And then once they do, you know that they're capable of it. And certainly not everybody is going to be able to do that multiple times. So some guys, you just have to bank on it happening for the first time. Kitayama is an interesting discussion. Let's pivot to him a little bit. I was about to say, because he has that win, it's really surprising to see him at 125 to 1 in this field. I think it's because he's coming off 3 straight missed cuts at the Memorial, the U.S. Open, and then the Travelers. How do you feel about his form right now? Granted, his miscut at the Travelers wasn't a bad one. He actually gained strokes, including gaining a ton off the tee, so I certainly like that. But do you feel like his game is one and it's volatile enough that you almost don't even care about recent form, because he's going to throw out missed cuts and then top 5s just like on a consistent basis, right, back to back?
Yeah, so I tend to look at form. Like, I'll look at form more for the alternate event this week, more so than like this event, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously, all your top guys are almost always in form, so you don't ever have to really worry about that. And any of them can win any given week. I mean, it definitely matters. I just think this golf is so different than the golf that he's played, right? So all those, if they were going to a more similar event, I think I would probably be more concerned with it. But being such a different golf course and a different type of golf in general, and honestly, the way that he plays, I think that this kind of fits him even better than the golf over here.
There's a narrative that I've seen that this is a good week to target players who have actually been struggling with their form, because you're coming overseas, you're playing on different grass types, you're playing a different style of golf, and maybe that helps some guys kind of recapture form that they've been searching for a while. Do you buy into that narrative at all?
I mean, maybe a little. I mean, I'm not going to target people that are just out of form to target them. I still want them to fit, right? I mean, I still want them, to feel like I've got some win equity there and that are going to be out there to compete. So I'm not just going to, take a guy that's playing terrible
So let's use Justin Thomas as the example. Somebody who clearly still has some win equity. Obviously, has been struggling this year. A very disappointing season for him. Just coming over here, maybe having to shape shots into the wind. Does that make you a little bit higher on him this week than you would be if this was just a regular event in the States?
Not me personally. I mean, I can understand maybe why, but I think he's been. If I felt like he was doing all that and didn't have, like he just maybe wasn't focused, and that he came over here and this would make him more focused, then yes, maybe. But I think he's been trying so hard.
Mm-hmm.
He's been really focused at every single event. I don't know if that makes sense, but I don't think he's preparing more here than he has every event. I think he's truly been working hard. So
I think the one argument that I could make in favor of JT here is that I think there's a chance that in his struggles, he's maybe become a little bit too mechanical, and having to shape shots will maybe help him just lean into the artistry side of golf a little bit more and just kind of trust his feels and not be thinking so much about what he's doing mechanically. That could help, but it's not like I know that that's what he's been struggling with. So that's just a potential benefit for him, not so much something that I'm banking on this weekend and a reason why I'm going to be backing him either on DraftKings or the betting market.
Yeah, and like I said, if it was an effort thing and all of a sudden he's going to be more focused, then I could get behind it. But I don't see that as a factor with him. So it's an interesting week. Some of these guys that are Ricky Fowler, like he's been playing awesome, finally gets his win. Does he take a week off, so to speak? Does he get over here and he's more getting ready for next week? Almost to the fact of like, he knows how hard golf is. He knows like the ups and downs. And if he were to go win this week, would he be like, well, now I definitely don't have a chance in the British Open because I just won 2 weeks in a row. And it's there's no chance it happens a third time. Does he just go out and prepare for next week?
I'm really not sure. It's a good question, and one that I think everybody wishes they had the answer to. But I will say I don't think I have much interest in him on DraftKings. The only way I'd have interest is if we end up seeing him at like 5% coming off a win. But it's not even the next week, so I don't think we'll get that discount on him. How about let's get to – do you have one or two guys in mind as this week's, like, let's say Minwoo Lee or Austin Eckroat, guys that you just think are too talented for their price and expected ownership?
Well, I think Davis Riley was the first one that came to mind there. Just like that we already talked about a lot of those. I think that somebody that you were pretty high on a couple weeks ago that could play really good here is Kevin Yu. I think that he is way too cheap at 6,800 on DraftKings, and he drives the ball really well. And I think he's kind of in grind mode right now. Played a little bit better last week.
Yep.
I wouldn't be surprised to see him compete. And then Adrian Moronk is the other one that I couldn't remember that finally came. I think that he's used to playing over there. Obviously a European Tour guy, super, super talented. Hits the ball a mile, kind of everything that we've kind of talked about here. So, 7, I think he's like low 72 or 7,300 in DraftKings. And he was another one that I was kind of like, man, I can't believe how cheap he is.
I don't know if I will back this up at all with my DraftKings play, but a guy who's potentially the single greatest course fit specialist, as in he projects better here than he would at any other course, is Taylor Montgomery. Like, the guy is awful with his irons. He's really inaccurate off the tee. Decent short game, but he's got some length off the tee, and he's a great putter. So if this course is all about distance off the tee and putting, he's going to have a chance. And maybe this change of scenery is going to help his iron play because, boy, is it in a horrendous shape right now. I mean, he's lost strokes off the tee in every single event since the match play in March, including losing almost 2.5 strokes per round at the John Deere this past week. He's just been an absolute mess with his irons. Maybe he gets that kind of going in a better direction this week. And then if he can just do enough with his ball striking that he's actually gaining strokes putting in terms of like making birdies and not saving pars or saving bogeys, he will have a chance. Probably somebody that I'll look more to in showdowns and just hope that he gets it together for one round instead of four. But something to keep in mind there. Another guy who's just really high volatility, yet another reason to back him in a showdown more than a main slate, because I certainly don't expect him to contend. I think that'll do it for this week. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Remember to check out all of the best ball content. We're starting to gear up towards the NFL season, less than 2 months away. Really, really exciting time. So whether you're using a free trial, ftndaily.com/free, or you already have an FTN Plus subscription, go check that stuff out. Thanks again for joining us. We will catch you next time.